This may look like an ordinary compact disc, but actually, it's an interactive encyclopedia. A stimulating match with a tennis pro. An interactive adventure through fantastic worlds. A glimpse into the world of Vincent van Gogh, or even a feature-length Hollywood movie. This is CDI, Compact Disc Interactive, a new world standard in multimedia home entertainment from Philips Electronics. You might expect to pay over $1,000 for an entertainment system that does this much, but now you can own a Philips CDI player for only $499. You can choose from more than 100 interactive titles by world-renowned publishers. CDI titles start at just $15. During this special TV promotion, we'll include Compton's Interactive Encyclopedia on disc, a $299 retail value, yours free during this limited time offer. Call the number on your screen now for a free brochure and for the location of your nearest CDI retailer.
Hello all, Alex here with Wisconsin Computer Club. Welcome back to the shop, and tonight we have this crazy thing in the bench. This is the Philips CDI, released in 1990 and then sold on through about 1998 and supported into the early 2000s. The CDI is a fascinating piece of video game history as it really wasn't brought as a video game machine in the first place. In the late 80s, the Philips Electronics company had an idea of how they could take the compact disc format and put media onto it. They wanted to sell movies on disc. They thought this was going to be big someday, to really replace VHS tape. Now, ultimately, DVD did that, but that wasn't around yet. So they were trying to find a way to take video CD and make that something better. And then they had this idea, well, what if you had it so you could make the CD interactive, so it would interact with the different buttons and things on it? Very similar to how we have like interactive DVD menus and things today. They want to do this in the early 90s, and that's what they did with this system. So by putting together reference libraries and art programs and movies and other things, they were trying to build this big library of content. But they also realized that the format could play games. This is powered by a Motorola 68000 processor, about the same one that well, it's a modified version, of course, but it's the same processor that is the heart of the Sega Genesis. So it is a capable 16-bit system if you wanted it to be one. So they reached out and tried to figure out how they could put games onto this system, and they had a few developers who were interested, and they made some kind of interesting things. It has a pretty cool port of Tetris. It has some other kind of, usually kind of light puzzle game kind of things. And then Philips struck a deal with this little company called Nintendo. Now, Nintendo at the time was working with another little company called Sony to put a CD add-on to their Super Nintendo. They were going to call it the Nintendo PlayStation. And not quite sure how it all came about, but Philips and Nintendo signed a deal and did not tell Sony. So they made a fool of Sony at the big entertainment show, and that, of course, didn't sour Sony immediately, and they didn't vow revenge, and they certainly didn't continue developing the PlayStation on their own. Definitely not at all. So Nintendo went ahead and tried to get Philips to basically take this CD interactive technology and make something for them. And as the project kind of continued and moved on, they realized that the CDI technology was not going to be what they needed, and Nintendo pretty much dropped the project right then. They're like, we're moving on to the next system. We're not going to make a disc-based. We're going to build what ultimately became the Nintendo 64, and that was that. So Philips was left then with these systems, but they also had, thanks to their dealing with Nintendo, they had a limited set of video games licenses they could use for Nintendo. So they released one Mario game and 3 Legend of Zelda games on this platform, and they are regarded as some of the worst of their entire franchises. Granted, I think if they hadn't been branded that way, they probably would have been okay, but it suffers from a number of problems. So we're going to take a look at it right now. Let's move Mega Man 8 off the thing. Here we go. We'll move it around a little bit here. This was designed to be set up in your living room as a home box. This was going to be your central entertainment system. And, I mean, that's a concept that a lot of video game consoles are still pushing today. So it had a TV remote that looked kind of like this. You could use this to control your TV as well, depending on the model. And it's got the little joystick in the middle, so if I can get it angled correctly, it's not seeing it. Oh, that is annoying. Well, a little more up, a little more up. I never liked the wireless remotes. As you can see, playing video games with an actual Philips CDI remote would be terrible. So they did release some gamepads for this, but they were all pretty terrible as well in their own special ways. A lot of them were wireless. A lot of them, even the cabled ones, weren't great. So the community got together and they hooked up this crazy little thing. This is an an Arduino-based solution that plugs into the front port here. And for the sake of getting it all oriented, I'm just going to power it down, power cycle it. Just a pretty fast power up, power down. And that lets you use a Sega Genesis controller. And say what you will about Sega, they made really good controllers compared to everything that Philips tried. So we're going to sit down here, we're going to tell it to play, and we're going to play ourselves a little bit of, well, or at least look at, a game that I absolutely love to hate. And let's see, it's going to spin here. Oh, that's a cool graphic. And it's going to load on in here. So the games came in these very large kind of DVD-style cases. Animation Magic, you probably already know what we're watching here. This is Link, the Faces of Evil. And this is a legendarily bad video game. It has full motion cutscenes that were animated by a company in Russia. The game itself was developed pretty much entirely in Russia by this company. And they knew some of the lore of the characters, but generally speaking, just kind of threw things together, and the actual operation and mechanics of the game are just, there's something else. So, come on, get to the cutscene. It has a lovely little cutscene here. I'll just put it on screen here so you can see a little bit of it.
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
My boy, this peace is what all true warriors strive for.
I just wonder what Ganon's up to.
Your Majesty, Ganon and his minions have seized the island of Korodai.
How can we help?
It is written, only Link can defeat Ganon.
Great, I'll grab my stuff.
There is no time. Your sword is enough.
How about a kiss, for luck?
You've got to be kidding.
Squadala, we are off.
Wow, what are all those heads?
These are the faces of evil. You must conquer each.
I guess I'd better get going.
Here is the map. Where do you wish to go?
Yeah, if you've been on the internet any amount of time, you will have seen this, you know, rolling around in various places. It's iconic from a certain period between about 2013 and about 2019 or so. It was kind of everywhere for a while in certain circles. So really kind of an odd little footnote for a video game system. And it's just, I feel kind of bad for it in that it's pretty much exclusively remembered as a terrible little machine that does nothing well. It's best known probably from its debut video for the Angry Video Game Nerd many years ago. Of course, James Rolfe had nothing nice to say about it, and that's entirely fair. But given what it could do in the 90s, the things that it did well at, say, navigating menus or, you know, showing off video clips, that kind of thing, it actually did pretty well. It was a pretty good system. And these things got sort of a second life in car dealerships. Most notably, Ford, Buick, and Volvo had a lot of CDI discs made for all their various showrooms, so you could go through, you could see specs about the cars they were selling or what they were doing on the tracks and whatnot. I'll show you a little bit of the video on these, but it would basically help sell the cars that way or answer customer questions, but they could kind of peruse the cars at their leisure without having to buy an actual computer setup when this was still kind of expensive if you wanted to build a computer that could handle video. Again, if you were trying to, say, get a computer set up in your dealership in, say, 2000 that could run actual real-time video, you were looking at probably getting a Pentium system. And even then, even a used one was still going to set you back a bunch of money. These things were, of course, basically clearance binned out by that point. So you could get away with that. You could have them printed by your company, and it was very easy to do that way. So these things ran on, I think the last ones that are listed are from 2004 or 2005. I think they've got, at least for the US market, it was 2004. I think they might have kept on a little bit longer in Europe. But these were used in car dealerships and kind of stuck around that way. So there is still a community for these things. The people still do make things for them. There's a limited homebrew scene, but it's just a curious little footnote that it had big promises of things it was going to do, and then kind of faded into obscurity, and then lived this glorious second life as this fountain of memes for the people of the internet. And I mean, I've delighted in all the stuff people have made using this as their source material. It's been tremendous. And now that that's kind of faded away, it's kind of fallen back into obscurity, and I'm sad about that, but I'm also kind of excited, because what does the future hold for this thing next? And that's an exciting question. So thank you all very much for indulging me in my ramblings. This again is the Wisconsin Computer Club's crazy workshop place. Thanks again so much, and enjoy the rest of the stream.